So today we're looking at the Montessori approach to language, to reading and writing. You will see, like in all Montessori areas, things are set out for the children so that they can independently work with the activities, and that they also take the child from simple to complex and from the known to the unknown. Generally, before the child is introduced to the work in the language area, they would have worked with the materials in the sensorial area. So the child would have been familiar with, for example, shapes, like these shapes. In the language area, they're not used to teach the children about the names of shapes. What they're used for is to introduce the child to writing and the direction in which you need to write. So when children work in this area, they would take a piece of paper, they would choose shapes that they want to work with, they would choose pencils that are only used when they work with this piece of material, and they will draw and trace the shapes inside. When these are presented to the children, they're presented to the children in such a way that it gives the children an idea of the direction that their pencil must follow when they ultimately work with writing their own letters. So there is a known element here because the children are familiar with shapes from working in sensorial, but the unknown is adding the part of drawing that shape. So the children are introduced to the idea of writing and using their pencil in a very specific way with this piece of material. In the language area, in the beginning, there is a great emphasis on developing vocabulary. So the children have lots of activities in which they can learn new words, activities such as this one, which is different sets of cards, and this is very easy for you to make, where there's a picture, for example, of a kitchen, and then within this envelope, there are lots of small pictures of all of the objects you would find in a kitchen. The children can build their vocabulary, build their understanding of their world by working with different sets of cards like that. It's very important for children, Maria Montessori felt, that they have a rich vocabulary, that they know how to talk about their world. So it is important in a Montessori classroom and in any ECD setting that we use the correct language with the children for the names of things. It doesn't matter what language you speak, as long as when you speak to the child, you use the correct language for things. And then when the children are ready, they start showing signs that they may be interested in reading and writing different words. We start introducing the children to the sounds of different letters. We play a game called the I Spy game, which gives the children an introduction to the idea that words are made up of lots of different sounds. So this again is something that's very easy for you to make. You have a collection of different objects, and you introduce the child to the idea that this is a cup, and you would play this game by saying, I spy with my little eye something beginning with a k. And the child needs to start associating a sound with an object. That will ultimately lead to the child associating a sound with a letter in a particular shape. And that's the beginning of reading. So the children would play the I Spy game and then be introduced to sandpaper letters. Remember, in the sensorial area, we did lots of activities to refine the children's senses. They did those touch tablets where they had to match the different textures of sandpaper. And now when they're introduced to their letters, these letters are all made out of a very fine sandpaper. And the children then get to see the letter. They get to hear the sound of the letter. So when I introduce this to the child, I tell them that this letter is A. And they get to feel the letter. So Maria Montessori was combining 3 different senses when the children learn how to understand letters. So they get to feel how it must how it looks, how to write the letter, they hear the sound, and they use their visual sense. So 3 senses are involved in learning, and there are always 3 senses at least involved in a learning process, but we often forget to emphasize some of them. So the children will systematically learn all of their letters using the phonetic sound, the sound that they naturally have, and this you get sandpaper letters in Arabic, in Hebrew, in any kind of formation that they are. It doesn't matter what language you speak. The sandpaper letters, the principles of those letters remain. So the children will learn all of their letter sounds after playing the I Spy game. And then the next step is for the child to use something called a large movable alphabet, which is a long name for a big piece of material that is all of the individual letters of the alphabet. And the children will build words using these sounds. So we will say to the child, in the word bad, what sounds do we hear? We hear a b, we hear an a, and we hear a d. So the children now learn, they've learned all the individual sounds of letters, and then they learn that when you put those sounds together, they form whole words. So the children learn how to build words so that they can learn to break those words down. If the children have a strong experience of building words, they will be able to break down and read quite advanced words easier because they know how to make them into individual sounds and then blend them back together. And so in a Montessori environment, it's considered that writing happens before reading, that the children are able to write the words, build the words, before deconstructing them and taking them apart into their individual sounds. So in this area, you will see that there's lots of material to help the child build their vocabulary, to help them understand the process of reading, first building words, and then they will move on. Once they've had a lot of experience in building words, they will have then the opportunity to see words as a whole and be able to read them and break those words down into their individual sounds because they've had lots of experience of building them up.